Welcome back to Seaweed Brain, a Percy Jackson podcast coming to you from spooky season. It's officially October. We are reading The Wrath of the Triple Goddess. You bet your bottom dollar we're also watching Agatha All Along, and Practical Magic, and Death Becomes Her, and The Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown. Pumpkin spice is in the air, so is friendship. We have chapters 5 and 6 to talk about today. Stick around. Welcome back, everybody. It's just Erica and Carter today, as it is the start of the semester for Carter, much like it is for Annabeth and Percy. How are you today, Carter?
I'm doing okay. There are many things going on in my life, most of which are tied to the fact that, I think it's going to be a very fun weekend.
Yes. We're recording this episode right before like a bunch of our friends descend upon the Bay Area so we can all spend the entire weekend together. Yay. So everyone is getting ready for a big weekend here, which is why we're squeezing this recording in. Big thing that has happened between the last time we recorded and now, I finished the book. So I will be doing my best to weave in thoughts about like overall theme and the project of this book without spoiling anything, if that makes sense.
I think it does make sense.
We can talk a little bit more about the overarching mission of the story and of Percy's journey and what it does, what this journey adds to Percy's overall story without spoiling anything as we continue to talk through the chapters. I did a little bit more light Googling after last week about the Stuyvesant family, and it makes sense that we were so confused because there are multiple Peter Stuyvesants. The first one is the one we were sort of discussing, which is the one that is referenced and later shall appear in this book. Peter Stuyvesant from the 1600s, the one who is buried in the St. Mark's churchyard, like the bench where Percy and Annabeth were sitting the last time. However, the Stuyvesant Square, the little park, also on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, is actually named after Peter Stuyvesant from the 1700s, which is, I think, what Carter was thinking of. And in that square, named after the latter Peter, there is a statue of the former Peter, which is confusing. There is also another Peter born later in the 1700s who lived into the 1800s, who is also a Peter Stuyvesant, who was a New York landowner and also, like man about town, influential figure. So there are multiple of them that lived throughout New York history. The one that we are encountering is Peter Stuyvesant Prime, the original.
Do you think he was the original? He was probably the original American Peter Stuyvesant, but that sounds like one of those names that probably goes back into the, 1200s or something.
For certain. I think the most important thing, though, is that none of these men were architects. I think as we would maybe modern consider them. So I think we're going with the reading that Percy just kind of got it wrong, and that Annabeth admires this man as a man who contributed a lot to the urban history of New York City and the creation of the city, but wouldn't necessarily be categorized as an architect, quote unquote.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you said, there are many, and it seems like none of the many are architects, and certainly not the most famous handful of them.
Yes, I believe so. We also had a nice chit chat in the Seaweed Brain Patreon Discord server about the timeline as far as Leo's disappearance and reappearance in this Percy's senior year that spans the senior year adventures and the Trials of Apollo. I'm still confused, to be honest. But if that's something people want us to dive more into, we can cite our patron Kaylee's like timeline. We could do that in a future episode.
Yeah, maybe in the future. I kind of feel like the correct answer for this, as for many properties of similar scope, scale, number of works that were published across real time and encompass various points in canon time. We could ask more questions about it, and I think it's interesting to ask more questions about it, but also.
Yes, I think that it is a fun thought exercise, and I love to see people breaking it down and doing the research and making the timeline, so long as at the end of the day, we can all kind of abandon it and know that because that is not important to Richard at the moment, we need not place too much importance upon it.
I think that's right. I think it's fun to do.
Fun to poke fun at. However, at the end of the day, it's fine. There is no timeline anymore. And if that's what it takes to keep getting books, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
All right, should we dive in?
Let's dive in.
Where did we last leave off?
We just got to the house, basically. The first 4 chapters have been a big wind up to this moment, I guess. We've been gathering the team, meeting some people from our real lives, and preparing to head over, which we did. We're at Hecate's mansion.
Okay, chapter 5, we enter the laboratory of forbidden ice cream. This is basically an entire chapter of a house tour, and then we're going to get a lot of instructions on how we're going to take care of Gale and Hecuba. I found this to be a delightful sequence of events to get to know the mansion a little bit as a character, right? To consider the mansion as a character in this story, to personify it a bit. The first thing that we see is a bunch of moray eels. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. The reason I don't snorkel are these bad boys. I don't want
Yeah,
to see
they're
one.
opponents in the scheme of life.
I was not familiar with moray eels being an animal associated with Hecate. I know snakes are, but I don't believe eels are, to my knowledge. However, she says that she keeps these because, quote, their toxic mucus is good for potions.
That sounds right. I think it may also be based off of an iconography idea that snakes and eels are kind of the same, which
Is not true. Evolutionarily, right, Carter?
evolutionarily, yeah, it's convergence upon that body shape.
Another great reason for including eels is, of course, so that we can get some more Percy communicating with sea creatures in this book.
They're giving us delightful little lies about how much food they're supposed to eat. Classic. Okay, to me, the thread that we're following throughout this chapter, we're meeting different pets, we're getting different instructions, we're seeing potion making areas and stuff. The big thing that we're getting is the degree to which this house is physically set up for Hecate's former witch academy that doesn't exist anymore. In so many of the passages, she's mentioning that a certain thing is for the witch trainees, and then she sort of like trails off mysteriously. And
Right. The fact that she won't even let them sleep in the bedrooms because there are a ton of bedrooms because it's like a dormitory, but she says the bedrooms are only for the lucky acolytes I train in magic.
which is fascinating because she uses present tense and then immediately afterwards says it's been a really long time since she's taken on an acolyte.
It's giving God time, goddess time, Where
It's
like
true.
to us it's been hundreds of years perhaps, but to her it's like a blink of an eye.
It's interesting and ambiguous though, because it's not that like gods do experience time differently, but if it were a true past tense thing, I think she would be able to say, like, if she had decided that she weren't going to be taking on anybody else, she could also communicate that it's done. We are finished with the era of commoner magic training or whatever. But she's not doing that. It's
Yeah.
deliberately vague, open ended. We don't know if something happened
Oh
to
yeah.
stop her.
It's Chekhov's old and abandoned school of magic.
Yes, it's true.
There is no denying that this will be coming back. Now that I've been on the internet and this book has been out for multiple days, I know that everybody clocked this. But when I was first reading, I was like, oh, page 40. Annabeth looked interested. Do you do that often? I haven't for many years, Hecate sighed. Once this mansion was a school for magic. Weird concept, I muttered, because sometimes I blurt stuff out that should not be blurted. It was just that I was having trouble imagining students running around the house, zapping one another with wands and making potions out of eel mucus.
People are saying it's shade.
Yes! Did you not read that as shade? Carter. You didn't read it as shade?
I mean, I read it as like Percy, I guess, throwing shade. The wands, I guess the wands, if we have to sit with that, is striking in the sense that no one in any of Rick's books ever has used a magic wand. And Hecate's acolytes almost certainly would not use magic wands. But when we're talking about shade, is the idea that Percy is throwing a shade? Like Percy is a valiant warrior in the fight against transphobia? Or is it people are trying to imply that Rick is throwing shade and that the concept of wand-based magic is always not meant for good books?
It's not about wand-based magic. It's about the idea of a school for magic.
Oh, see that I'm gonna have to not co-sign.
You don't think that's shade? I think that coming out of the great, 2023 Twitter wars of who would clear who in a fight, Percy Jackson versus Harry Potter, this does feel like shade for me from Percy himself.
I can understand that. I'm mostly fascinated, not by like the idea of whether or not this was intended to be shade, but the idea that this would be, I don't know, like maybe the climate has changed since this was originally written, but there are editors kind of down to the line. I'm surprised that someone didn't nix this and say like, this is too controversial.
I know. One would think
We're
that it is
not
too
starting
controversial.
firefights on the internet. or allowing people to start firefights on the internet on our behalf, which we would not approve of, you know?
I think that it's shade from Percy, hands down 100%.
Like, you think Percy knows about the idea of the Harry Potter novels and
Because
is
I
not
think Harry
gagging?
Potter, I think Harry Potter, the book, exists in the Riordan
Mhm.
verse, much like Star Wars exists in the Riordan verse.
Yes. And Percy is just not enthused.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
I think that Percy has too much main character
Do you think
energy.
Percy thinks that the prose is clunky? Um,
Oh, oh, yes. I think Annabeth told him, and then he was like, "You're so right." He's never read them.
Do you think he like saw the first movie and was like, "Wow, this Christopher Columbus director is this is not good."
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Also on page 40, following this quote, before Hecate could smite me, Annabeth jumped in. Hecuba mentioned that the school closed. Why was that? Hecate gave the hellhound a withering look. We don't talk about the school if we want to remain a happy family. The dog tucked her tail between her legs. On Hecate's shoulder, the polecat chittered, probably teasing the hellhound. This is a beautiful depiction of the fact that these three do operate as a little family inside of
Mm-hmm.
this mansion. I think that's important to note that I don't know, it's not necessarily like a mother and her two children dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that dynamic, but they do have this weird little coven situation going on.
Yes. We're reminded of this a few chapters down the line, but this is information that we have going in, which is that the pets, Gale and Hecuba, are like former humans. That they're people who met Hecate as humans and are now with her for eternity as animals and pets. So like, we have this layer originally of like Grover talks to animals. Grover not just is able to, but does frequently get meaningful piece of information from animals all the time. But there's an extra valence here that like Hecuba is not just an animal who has thoughts and feelings, but also is like a person trapped inside of an animal who has thoughts and feelings and histories.
There's a really great quote, not in these two chapters, but in the chapter immediately following about that. We'll get there eventually.
I literally can't remember. This is really embarrassing, but I'm pretty sure they actually told us that Hecuba is not named after the former queen of Troy. She is the former queen of Troy
Mm-hmm.
in like House of Hades. I think,
Mm-hmm.
right? We get this piece. Okay.
Spooky ooky. So we have to decide where we're going to sleep. They're going to camp in the living room, which is great because, of course, Grover has supplies from the rats who run New York City. This is why I think that the previous page is shade, because it's one page later, page 41, where we talk about the library. Percy says, also off limits, I guessed. Hecate arched her eyebrows. I don't limit access to books, Percy Jackson. I'm not a monster. That is clear shade to the epidemic of book banning going on in this country, which is why I think we were just in a shady mood.
Yeah. I'll co-sign that. I think that's
Great.
right.
Yes, I've convinced Carter. These are two
As we're
pages
going
full of
along,
shade.
there is also before this, the shade occurred to me initially, but now that we're looking for shade, there is this comment offhand about Hecate creating bathrooms somewhere because there weren't bathrooms previously, and Percy kind of skewering her for this. I feel like that is also shade, is it not?
Because
The
she didn't
idea
have
that like the school
bathrooms?
for magic specifically is constantly
Transphobic.
changing its architecture. Oh,
Oh,
or that. Ooh. Uh,
let us say these are readings. These are not intentions. These are readings we are reading
death of the
into this.
author. We are looking at a document that is fixed and exists in the world that we are all allowed to have thoughts and feelings about and use as a way to think about people, events, ideas.
The bathrooms were previously inaccessible at this school of magic that doesn't exist anymore, so she has to make new bathrooms. Do with that what you will. Okay. So once we decide we're going to sleep in the library, we go check out the kitchen. Also, this whole time, Hecuba and Gale are following the group, and Gale is like sitting on Hecuba's shoulder. Again, we don't know a ton about their relationship, but they're clearly very close.
Yeah. What is my mental image for this? Is it Timon and Pumbaa?
A little bit, yeah,
But like femme.
exactly. And didn't the world need so badly a femme Timon and Pumbaa dynamic?
Wow,
Were we
that's very
just waiting?
insightful. I think
Were
that's
we just
correct.
lying in wait?
We don't have such examples. Interesting. Okay, well, we have this now. We go to the kitchen next. We're in the kitchen, which is not generally for creating potable food because that's not relevant for a goddess.
Mm-mm.
in much the same way bathrooms are not relevant for a goddess. But it is the fun potion laboratory, the titular laboratory forbidden ice cream. And we do encounter the forbidden ice cream.
Say it with me. Chekhov's forbidden ice cream. Absolutely no taste testing or there will be dire consequences. Do you understand? I wrote in my book, something tells me Grover is going to face these dire consequences.
Something like the book blurb.
Oh, I didn't read the book blurb. I'm just smarter than a fifth grader.
Is there like a Brothers Grimm fairy tale about this? Because this is definitely like, there is a Japanese folk tale that is this exact plot as well. And I think that it is one of those archetypes that exists across several different cultures, but I don't know
Isn't
what.
Hansel and Gretel about, like, don't eat the candy? Don't eat the baked goods?
I guess. Well, yeah, that's close enough. We'll allow it.
Yeah, it seems like a world witch tradition to say to the children, don't eat the sweet treat, but then they do.
Yeah. You have to like teach children, I guess, suffering. Restraint, I guess, is the kind frame, but
Salty snacks are better than sweet ones.
in Japan, there's specifically a folktale that is about somebody being tasked to watch like a food item when they're really hungry and being told if you touch it, something really bad is going to happen to you, which is like a little bit different. And like, it's like exactly the story. Whereas Hansel and Gretel is a little bit like you're wandering through the woods and you see this house made of sweets. It's immoral for you to eat it, so you would implicitly be punished for doing that. This other story is literally like the most important test that you can put someone through is the test of temptation under extreme physical duress.
Mm-hmm.
Like in this story specifically, it's like a cowherd being forced to guard watermelons in the middle of a drought and like 100 something, like there's obviously not a temperature number in the myth, but like, you know, like extreme heat, no water, being surrounded by these watermelons of like the emperor of heaven. And then he eventually needs to basically break one open to live, and then he creates the Milky Way. Like the Milky Way spills out of the watermelon because they're so juicy.
Is this the first time Grover has faced a sort of temptation trial? It feels like no to me.
I want to say no as well, but I cannot place any particular temptation trial that we've had in the past.
Let's see. Sea of Monsters, he's running away. Titan's Curse. Where is he in Titan's Curse? He's not
Titan's
around.
Curse, he's with the crew. He's like
with the
on the
crew.
quest. But I don't think any of their
Labyrinth,
challenges
he's
are structured
looking
that
for
way.
Pan. Yeah. Olympus, no. Here's Olympus, he's not there. Trials of Apollo, no. So maybe.
This might be the first time for him, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. What does that do for him? You know, like what does that add to our experience of Grover and Grover's story?
I don't have an opinion at this point about whether this is centralizing him more, or is there a word for this? Gesturifying him further?
Causing him to be the fool.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The clown, I guess the fool is actually the classical Shakespearean, whatever, like way of describing a position that this could be implying for him.
Or a burden, you know, just in general, like a burden to the trio.
Mm.
I'm going to go with that.
That would be an interesting dynamic to pull on, the idea that he feels marginal and that we're trying to figure out a new dynamic under duress.
Yeah.
For the three of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially given that this is their senior year.
They're about to move away from him as well. Yeah.
Yeah. They only have limited time together.
Okay. I'm on board. I do feel like it has been a long time coming, though, because you might remember, listeners, from the early books that many of even though Grover wasn't specifically facing temptation-based trials, he was constantly talking about food.
As they're in the kitchen, Grover and Hecate are bonding over the Great Witch's Brew-Off, which apparently was filmed all 7 seasons here, which is also very exciting for Grover. And he says, "Oh, I love the episode with the growth elixirs when Alejandro turned into a Hyperborean giant." That I could not help but reading in Arian's voice.
We also get specifically, I actually cackled at this, that we get a mention of the streaming television service that the gods use, and it is Olympus
Plus.
You know, it wasn't like Olympflix, it wasn't
yes,
Max.
Olympus Max. It's Olympus Plus, obviously.
Yeah, Rick said I can follow a branding guide, and he did.
There's strawberry ice cream, the titular forbidden ice cream. It's strawberry ice cream, as we established for the first time, like a couple chapters ago. Strawberries are Grover's kryptonite, apparently. After all those years farming those strawberries at Camp Half-Blood, he has a thing for them. So he's obviously going to be facing those dire consequences at some point. And now we have to go learn how to care for the pets. Quick break. Before we talk about chapter 6, we have to shout out our sustaining patrons. As always, Olympus Weekly, Izzy A, James A, Justin M, and Dayton N. Thank you guys for supporting the podcast. If you want to join our Patreon, to join our Discord server and get access to exclusive special episodes, it's patreon.com/seaweedbrain.
All right, chapter 6, raw chicken carcasses and where to find them.
I really have to say, speak of the femme version of Timon and Pumbaa, what I really appreciate about Gale the polecat is adding to the canon, the literary canon, a just disgusting, nasty female rodent, you know? Just a disgusting, nasty, farting, gassy, covered in chicken goo, but still like slinky, like still a little slinky weasel.
The chicken goo is actually part of the slayage. We find out that
Exactly.
the reason why she looks so good is because she's moisturized.
I love her. She's
She's
carnal. She's
conditioned.
disgusting, but she still slays. And I, as a gassy queen, really needed that representation.
Good. Wow. It is
Yeah.
so important to see yourself in media and stories.
Yeah, I'm staring at my Kirkland signature box of fast-acting lactase that Carter got for me. We need to feed that to Gale. Maybe that's where their quest will go. To Costco for lactase.
To Costco for the
Gale.
lactase. Yeah, okay, so the dynamics is that Gale is freak nasty, running up inside of a whole chicken carcass. Whereas Hecuba is the other, I would say, pet archetype where she is old and on 30 million different medications.
It is that dynamic. She is the old girl dog. She is slow where Gale is having the zoomies.
Yeah. I feel like very recently, over the course of the past few months, I've kind of turned around and realized that I actually now know in my life so many people who have geriatric, multiple chronic condition, comorbid dogs that really are kind of just like their whole lives at this point. Is this like a getting older thing? I think this to me is the biggest
I know
mark of
people
getting
like this
older.
as well.
It's not people talking about, oh, I can't hold my neck a certain way, although there is that too. It's not people being like, I don't want to eat this food because then tomorrow I'm going to feel a little gross. The real marker is people being like, okay, this has been fun, but I need to go home immediately so that my dog doesn't poop itself all over our floor. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I have a friend whose entire life is dictated by the medicine schedule that their dog is on. But that dog isn't old. He just has a lot of mental health struggles.
Oh,
yeah.
And we support that. Let's get that dog on Prozac.
Yeah, Lexapro.
Lexapro.
I know a lot of people whose cats are on Lexapro. Like, once again, trying to uncover and track this strange relationship dynamic that is present between Gale, Hecuba, and Hecate. Talking about the kibble that smokes like dry ice. Hecate says, she loves it. Don't you, pretty girl? Hecuba's big bloodshot eyes seem to send the message, I hate my life. That's my pretty girl, Hecate cooed. Now she gets walks twice a day, morning and evening, and here you'll find her supplies. So again, we know Hecuba is a human. We know that as readers of the Heroes of Olympus. That hasn't been brought up yet. But she's being treated like an animal.
Yeah.
It is unsettling.
Some of this seems like performatively condescending, not condescending, but like belittling. You know, like Hecate seems like she's really leaning into the archetypal person with small animal types of language and behaviors to prove a point, I feel. I do also my primary reference for this actually was not the people with the elderly dogs because of the size and the way they were describing the nuggets. I think we've mentioned before in the podcast that I'm a former Honolulu Zoo volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
They brought us into the commissary, and most of the commissary at a zoo is like humongous, strangely colored, strangely shaped nuggets that are specially made because a lot of zoo animals get way older than the animals are normally living in nature. And so they become the like ultra comorbid. We need to design a special sausage that this animal can still eat because their teeth are different and their, jaw width is not what it would be for a regular younger animal, you know?
But that's so true because Hecuba isn't just like a hellhound that probably lives very long. She's like an immortal hellhound because she's been, as far
Yeah.
as like
You
cursed
think her
basically
joints
by
are
Hecate.
really messed up?
Yeah, she needs the medicinal McNuggets. Hecate's talking about taking out Hecuba for a walk, and she says, "Just don't take her further than Pennsylvania." Pennsylvania? Grover asked. Hecate turned to Annabeth. "Are your friends a bit slow, or do they just have bad hearing?" Annabeth kept a straight face. "They're fine, just a little in awe. You are a goddess, after all." Hecate looked satisfied with that answer. "Well, I'm glad they have a sensible young woman to direct them then. If I still had my school. ... Dot, dot, dot." She hesitated, then sighed. "Never mind." I thought when I was reading this chapter for the first time, oh my god, this book is going to end with Annabeth signing up for magic school because she never ended up going with the hunters. And this is her like second chance at having like a female focused education in magic and gender studies.
I think it would be a good elective for her. You know, she has to senior year, it's time to this is her glass blowing, if you will.
I did do glass blowing senior year as an elective. I was bad at it, but I'm glad I did it. I just love Hecate turning to Annabeth to communicate.
Yeah. She is a girl's girl down. Like she genuinely, it seems, doesn't respect the other two. It's this part isn't performative. This is her actually being efficiency oriented in her communication.
Exactly. Important to note, the animals have to be on their leashes when they go outside because they're enchanted. The leashes are enchanted to make sure that Hecuba and Gale effectively can't escape. That's something else we should note. What kind of family dynamic here is it such that we all get along and we're one big happy family? However, we are still enchanting them to stay at home.
Mm-hmm.
Noting that, we're going to move on to Gale now and Gale's care.
Gale has a playroom.
This is delightful. Will you read this, Carter? The
The
description on
playroom
47?
description?
Yes.
The place was a forest of carpeted columns riddled with polecat-sized holes, so Gale had plenty of places to scamper, hide, and fart. A thick bed of cedar shavings on the floor partially covered up the aroma of intestinal distress, but it still smelled like Gale had made herself right at home. Along the back wall stood a row of combat dummies, the kind you'd see in a self-defense class, with pedestal bases, padded upper bodies, and rubber heads with crew cuts. The polecat had been hard at work attacking these. I could tell from the chewed off noses, ripped open guts, and claw marks where the dummies' groins would have been. And then it's time for Gale to mess up a whole dead chicken.
I love her so much. My heart is bursting with love for Gale, the angry, disgusting, slimy, gassy polecat who in her free time rips up test dummies from the
Yeah.
groin.
She's no, she have we all seen Miss Congeniality, the Sandra Bullock film? She is Sandra Bullock in that movie. Her talent at the final round is to describe self-defense techniques. She tells you to sing, and it's sing is a mnemonic for solar plexus, instep, nose, and groin. Gale knows what's up. Gale is targeting the Sandra Bullock approved list of weak spots in the test dummies. She's
Oh,
ready for
absolutely.
anything.
Because when Hecate is home in her home drag with the messy bun
Mm-hmm,
and the
mm-hmm.
yoga pants and the big
Do you think
t-shirt,
she's watching
they're
Miss
all cuddling up on the
Congeniality?
sofa together. Yes. They're absolutely watching Miss Congeniality and Practical Magic and Death Becomes Her all together. I just love Gale.
I see that for
I could
you.
just burst.
Rick also makes an alien reference here. Do you think he timed the release of this book? I'll be honest with you, I knew nothing about Alien. Like, I knew that it was a movie that existed
Until like a couple months
until,
ago.
yeah, basically until the hype cycle started in preparation for the release of this new reboot or whatever of
Yeah.
it. And now I have had so many conversations about this movie franchise that I know I will never see.
Carter, you should watch them though. They are very
I
good.
believe that they're good. I also believe that they're like not for me. I think I might watch a YouTube video essay about
That's okay.
Prometheus.
There are also many like you could watch multiple YouTube video essays that would actually take longer than just watching the movies
And I think I would probably prefer
because
that.
there's plenty of content out
Yeah.
there.
Anyway,
Are you not like a monster movie person?
no. Am I? I don't think I
Uh,
am. I enjoyed Pacific Rim, but I think it's they're different genre conventions,
I
you
know. I
know?
knew you were going to say Pacific Rim. Yeah, but like you're not going to sit down and watch like the original Frankenstein.
Oh, Like, am I a monster movie person in the sense of, do I enjoy the classical themes about monstrosity and the othering of classes of beings?
Okay, maybe Frankenstein was too lofty an option there, but Alien is amazing.
I believe that some of the movies are good.
I'm a recent Alien convert. Not even convert because I wasn't anti them. I'm a recent Alien awakened
Nowhere.
human. No, alien knower. I know her. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Apparently, Rick is an alien knower as well, and really timed this correctly. That reference would have meant, like, I would not have paused for that previously, but now I literally have the image in my head of what it would look like for Gale to emerge from the chicken carcass.
I'm going to read this because this is. We were talking last week about how we wanted more horror, spooky vibes in this book, and we need to honor this passage on 48. Hecate removed a chicken carcass from the refrigerator and walked over to a large meat hook hanging by a chain from the ceiling. She impaled the chicken and let it swing. Horror set in as I realized that the polecat was supposed to leap onto it, but it was 6 feet in the air. No way could Gale. The polecat leaped up like a fuzzy rocket and sank her fangs into the chicken's left thigh. She clawed her way onto the swinging poultry, then disappeared into its, cavity. Growling, shredding, and slurping sounds issued from the chicken's chest. Then, with a terrible rip, Gale's head punched through the chicken's rib cage. Her eyes gleamed with pleasure. Her teeth were bloody, her fur coated with chicken flesh and fat. "Oh," said Grover in a weak falsetto. "I was hoping she ate mouse-flavored biscuits or something, but instead we got the monster from Alien." Even Annabeth gets scared. I love this.
Scared by eating chicken. Good. Should we compare the harnesses also?
Yeah, you want to talk about their leashes?
They have different designs. Gale's one is the one that gets commented on, I think, a little bit more. It's a black leather with stainless steel spikes.
Yeah, because she's hardcore. She's goth. She's Hot Topic. Hekiba has like the Hello Kitty harness, right?
One is pink, one is yellow, one has daisies, and one has Hello Kitty designs. And they're leashes specifically, because, because Hekiba is a dog. I guess it is true by their sizes that Gale would have a harness and Hekiba would have a leash. But I do think it's
so
also
Gale has like a
telling.
leather harness.
Yeah.
But then the daisies the daisy leash hooks up to the leather harness.
Oh. Okay.
No, but is that what you, because
No. I think the leashes are all for Hekiba. And Gale just has a harness.
Oh. There's a meme of like Edward Scissorhands sitting in the car, and it says like, "My mom driving me, her spooky little creation."
Yeah.
And that I think is like Hekiba and Gale.
Yeah.
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 One of them is very normal. The other one is terrifying, slimy.
Chicken fat. We have a few more details about Gale and the dental care that she requires and such, but we basically leave off with this description of Hecate's symbols of power that we apparently have access to. This I found very surprising. I didn't know where we were going with this. She leaves her torches there. I mean, I know where they were going in the sense that it is the most Chekhov's gun of the Chekhov's guns that we've left lying around. Like it's literally a weapon hanging on the wall in front of us that we were told we can't use at some point. But I was still surprised.
So surprised that they're there?
That she would leave them, I got, yeah.
Oh.
And then she would make this comment about...
Feels like a test, no?
Yeah.
Or less so a test because she probably doesn't care about the outcome, more so just a crossroads. I like the idea that Hecate, being the goddess of crossroads and choices, is like, I'm just going to put a lot of little Chekhov's options for you here and there and everywhere, and you can choose to get into what mischief you desire.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll touch them at some point in the event of an extreme emergency. But anyway, Hecate needs to go because
she's off to Tokyo Disneyland now.
She has to go to Tokyo Disneyland. This made me giggle. They're having a spooky Boo parade in her honor.
Do we think this is referring to Boo, the probably Asian child from Monsters, Inc.?
I didn't even think about that. TBT to when we were on our Pixar tour.
And Erica was just like, is this character Asian? Is this character a lesbian?
I did not, because I know which characters are lesbians. I didn't have to ask.
Or the question was like, can you confirm officially that Boo is Asian? Can you confirm officially that Riley is a lesbian and that she is in love with the captain of the hockey team with the hair and the pronouns from the second movie?
Inside Out 2.
Yeah.
They wouldn't give us any straightforward answers.
They were like, we support your reading or something like that.
Our tour guide was Asian, and he also said that he thought Boo was Asian.
How could she not be? It's not even about the way that the features are drawn. It's literally the haircut. That is not a haircut. Anyway, I'm choosing to interpret that that's what it is. I know that the people of Japan gagged for Boo. I hope Hecate has a great time at Tokyo Disneyland doing her brand integration. And I know she will.
This is a real parade. I'm looking it up. Spooky Boo Parade. Oh, no. It doesn't have to do with Boo, the Pixar character. It's just Boo, like
the onomatopoeia.
Boo.
Yeah.
Wait. Do you think is Boo an onomatopoeia of a ghost noise?
I guess I'm using onomatopoeia in a loose, probably not correct sense. Japanese has a lot of words that are referred to by linguists as onomatopoeia that aren't really onomatopoeia, there's an onomatopoeia for scrubbing dishes vigorously.
I do love that this book is going to feature world Halloween traditions, and the one that we chose from Japan is Tokyo Disneyland Boo Parade.
No, because that's the thing. It's I think in a lot of countries, when we talk about non-European countries, world Halloween traditions means what is their cutesy little canned 3 times refracted version of America and commercialism, particularly in Japan. And they specifically do gag for a Halloween theme park situation.
As do I. Well, Hecate changes into a gorgeous evening gown to go to Tokyo Disneyland. And Percy says she looks like Dark Cinderella, ready to torture her wicked stepsisters. To which I said, Dark Cinderella? Andrew Lloyd Webber reference? That is technically Bad Cinderella.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what Bad Cinderella is, I encourage you to look it up.
I do not encourage you to look it up.
I encourage you to look it up. Basically, Goth Cinderella. Learn all you can about Dark Cinderella. Learn all you can about the Andrew Lloyd Webber production Bad Cinderella, because it's important to be cultured and important to know our history.
And by history, I mean it's a year old or 2 years old.
Yes.
That is a fun comparison. Dark Cinderella, as opposed to Fairy Godmother or Wicked Stepmother or something else entirely.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's the gloves. It's the evening gloves.
Oh, it's the gloves. Yeah. It's meant to evoke the idea of the Disney Cinderella animated image.
Do you imagine also that the dress cut is similar, where there's a sleeveless bodice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
High waist.
Yes. High waist.
Always lock up when you leave. I will see you at midnight on Friday. If all is in order, you will have your recommendation letter, Percy. If all is not in order, I won't need a recommendation letter because I won't have a future. She patted me on the cheek with her silk glove. I knew you were smarter than you looked. Ta-ta! The goddess disappeared in a swirl of black soot. I looked at Annabeth and Grover. I tried to think of something encouraging to say. Then I noticed Hecuba and Gale staring at us from the doorways of their respective rooms. Their eyes gleamed. They both grinned, baring their teeth as if thinking, Mom is gone. Now the fun begins. I'm bummed Hecate is gone and we won't get to see her, but I loved every second she was with us.
She is fun. She is fun.
All right. Any last thoughts?
I do not encourage you to look up Bad Cinderella. That's my last thought.
We were informed that we should be doing 3 chapters at a time because it's the Wrath of the Triple Goddess, which is absolutely true. We didn't have time today, but we're going to start doing 3 chapters at a time starting next week.
I think it's nice for us to do sets of, you know what I mean? We should end on a number divisible by 3. So today we got to 6, so that next time we can do 7 through 9, and that's a nice 3. If next time we had to do 8 through 10, God forbid, that's just a little sloppy.
I do understand, because 9 is my favorite number, and numbers divisible by 3 are important.
Wow, okay. Witchy.
I'm just born this way. Okay, thank you guys for joining us. We promise we'll have guests again soon. Godspeed, spooky season. We've already discussed our Halloween costumes. We'll let you know if anything changes. We're still crones. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye, all.
Bye.